People nowadays are so afraid of women being able to do things. I guess we as men for some reason believe that if a woman is good at something, then that means that we can't be good at that very thing. Because there can only be one gender standing at the top of the hill. Either it's a patriarchy or it's a matriarchy, there's no in between. And to all the men out there, this is my message. We cannot let the women take over. We can't let them overpower us. We need to fight back against these movies that show women beating up men, being better than men, because how is that possible? It's not realistic. And as we all know, the one thing you need in order to be a confident alpha male is to be insecure about your masculinity every time a female beats up a male in a movie. Because being weak is the opposite of being strong. So we can't let the agenda-driven crowd tell us that we're not capable, that we're not worthy, that we're not the ones in charge. So I implore all of my loyal viewers to go onto Twitter and cry. Literally cry about female empowerment in modern Hollywood. It may be unmanly to cry, but we have to fight back somehow. And if the only way is to whine about how a single girl shouldn't be able to defeat the Predator, when a group of strong and trained men couldn't even do the same, then that's our mission now. Time to prove everyone who laughs at us right by being a bunch of pussies. Alpha males unite! Anyways, let's talk about toxic masculinity. So the movie Prey just came out, which is a new installment of the Predator franchise, and it has been getting a lot of positive reviews. People aren't saying that it's perfect, but many share the opinion that it's the best Predator movie since the original. However, not everyone shares this sentiment, because believe it or not, in this movie we follow a girl who, through events that I won't spoil for you, ends up hunting the Predator. Some people think that this is very dumb, because apparently a woman shouldn't be able to do this. Now this has led to various people hilariously dunking on the people who actually think this way on Twitter. And here are some of my favorite posts that I've seen so far. It's just crazy to me that someone's main argument against this movie is seriously that the protagonist is a woman, and that she's badass. Before the movie even came out, these goons saw the trailer and deemed it woke garbage. Like, how are you not just setting yourself up to not like a movie when you talk about it like this before you even watch it? It's just the constant stream of people complaining about this shit before it even comes out yet. But the funniest reaction of all is probably the critical drinker. As always, he has also made multiple videos on why Prey was bad before it came out, which he does quite often with what he perceives as woke media. But he also gave us this quick review on Twitter where he mumbled a bit, but if you just read it, and it's not too difficult to understand what his reasons are for not liking this movie, and why you shouldn't either. Honestly, I like his Twitter page because whenever he gives a negative review and blames it on being woke, then that's my cue to go watch that movie, because chances are it's not as bad as he says. But honestly, this movie exposed some people, all those people who've been saying for years that they have no problem with female protagonists, they just don't want them to be Mary Sue's and be a symbol of clear political messaging. They always point to the good old classics such as Terminator and Alien, where there are badass women who end up winning against an unbeatable super monster, and that they'd be fine with movies like this today, instead of Mary Sue heroines such as Rey or Captain Marvel. However, when a movie then actually does come out with a female protagonist who trains hard and studies this super monster and eventually wins against it just like in the older movies, now it's just woke. Now it's just female empowerment pandering bullshit. And it shows that these people really just don't want women in their movies. Unless of course they play smaller roles, are submissive towards the male characters, and are overwhelmingly sexy. But in reality, they just get insecure when they see a woman being successful at something. However, as always, when we talk about these weird reactions to modern media, there's always a bigger picture. There's always a greater trend that we can explore. I think it has sadly been ingrained into the heads of a lot of people that there's a secret agenda made up of feminists who want to change the world order and have women on top and men be their slaves. They might not think exactly that, but I think a lot of people truly have bought into this reactionary argument that women hate men, and that we should all support this mindset so that they can take over. Yes, there are politics involved in this cultural shift we've seen. Women becoming more represented and having more prominent roles in media is part of the ongoing feminist movement that has been going on for a century, but it's not sinister. It's not out to get you. It really isn't that complicated. The human species has primarily been patriarchal in nature throughout history, and it happened to develop that way because of the physical differences between men and women. It was a system, a deeply flawed one, that worked at first when humans had to compete with nature and then just propagated to where we are today. However, the whole point of humankind is to rise above nature, to tame it. We were given this brain for a reason. Physically, we'd be dominated by most animals out there, but there's a reason we've managed to get to where we are today. Humans dominate the earth now. We've overcome nature and biology in many ways, and it's all because of our brains. And our brains have the same potential whether you're a man or a woman. It literally doesn't matter. Patriarchal systems are outdated, and we've been realizing this more and more. Whether you like it or not, social trends are moving towards equity between the sexes, and in some places in the world it would seem like we're already close, while other places are still very far behind. However, that's not to say that the problems that arise from patriarchal systems, cultures, and history are even close to being fixed even in the West. We've still got so much more to do, and it's not just men that have been affected. Men used to be, and in some places are still being drafted into wars that they don't want to fight, and forced to die for causes that they don't even know. Toxic masculinity is also a direct consequence of patriarchal systems. Men are told that they shouldn't cry, that they shouldn't show too many emotions because that makes them look weak. We men need to be stoic and be providers, and it's fucked up. There's a reason more men commit suicide than women, and a large part of that is due to this toxic masculinity that is still present today. If you're a person who cares about men's rights and about doing something about men's health, then feminism is absolutely an ally to you, and don't let politicians who just want you to blindly support them tell you otherwise. However, although men are also affected negatively by patriarchal systems, they do also benefit from them, and women are obviously the primary victims. Despite all the steps that have been taken over the past several decades, women in America are now again being targeted, more specifically in their right to choose and control their own bodies. And let's not even try to act like bodily autonomy isn't a vital human right. If I were to hit a person with my car while driving drunk and they needed one of my kidneys in order to survive, the doctors still can't legally give this dying person my kidney without my consent, even though it was my fault that they're now dying. Because the second the government takes away bodily autonomy, that's where real fucking scary shit starts happening. That's when this truly becomes a dystopia. And that's the thing. All the men who are trying to take away a woman's right to choose would scream and yell if people were trying to do the same to men. It just wouldn't even be considered. That's one aspect in which women still suffer greatly due to these fucked up systems. But there are also a lot more subtle examples, such as the pay gap. And yes, the pay gap does exist. It's not as straightforward as some people seem to think, however. The pay gap doesn't just refer to a man and a woman having the same job but women being paid less. That's an oversimplification. The pay gap also comes from social engineering. Essentially, due to gender norms and traditions, men are socially conditioned into seeking jobs that are more attributed with the character traits that men from the past have deemed to be manly, such as doctors, pilots, lawyers, and politicians, while many women are socially conditioned into seeking jobs that are again deemed by men from the past to be feminine, such as nurses, teachers, and other service and caring jobs. There's also an interesting phenomenon in sociology called male flight, in which more and more women join a specific profession or engage in a specific activity. Men start fleeing it as they fear it's becoming feminine. And the pay gap then comes from these more masculine jobs being higher paid jobs than the more feminine jobs. However, in the West, this pay gap has been falling for a long time, because we've finally begun realizing that this is all bullshit. There aren't any of these jobs that require brain power, such as lawyers, politicians, and doctors, that can be better performed by men than women. It depends on the individual person. Yes, some jobs where you have to lift a lot are more geared towards men. However, this is again based on individuals. So many women out there would be better lifters than I would. It's just that on average, these jobs attract men and are well suited to their abilities. But for most other jobs, it doesn't fucking matter, because again, intelligence doesn't discriminate between whether you're a man or a woman. Only our environments and our experiences do that. And it's society that creates these different experiences for men and women, and we need to fix this. And it's not easy. I don't have the answers, I don't think anyone does, but there are small steps that we can take that would greatly improve the livelihoods of a lot of people, be it men or women, if only we'd just be willing to sit down and talk to each other. I'm hopeful that if we all sat down together and talked about these things, then we'd agree on so much more than this perceived culture war makes us believe. But this sentiment just gets swallowed by this never-ending conflict, especially when there are politicians and people in power or people with influence who benefit from fueling this conflict. If we could just try for 1 minute to sit down and listen to one another, truly, then I believe that we could make some real progress. Because believe it or not, there are billions of people on this earth who are suffering in ways that we here in the West couldn't even imagine. But before we can even attempt to make significant improvements for the less privileged people in the world, we need to get our own shit together first. It's fucked up that the most powerful country in the world, the country that's supposed to lead progression, is a country that treats so many of its people like trash. We need to try to sort this shit out. It's difficult, but I just have to believe that this is possible. But anyways, that's all I had for today. This wasn't even supposed to be such a passionate rant. I really just wanted to talk about Prey and the funny situation going on with that. But as always, it's more complicated than that. But what do you think about all this? Also, let me know what you thought of Prey if you've watched it yet. Leave your opinions down in the comments. I'm currently away on vacation right now, but I'll try to read as many of them as I can. Also, as always, thank you to my lovely Patreons, including our turf captain, Ben Joseph. But other than that, I hope you all have a wonderful day. Stay safe and peace out.